Oh, is it showtime? I'm sorry, John. It's showtime already. I've been caught up in this book since 2021. I mean, this is an amazing book, John. So I didn't even know it was showtime. I'm so sorry. But, oh my God, look who we have on the show today.
We might have the author of that
one
book.
and only Tom Erb.
What a coincidence.
Wow.
We're enthralled in that book. So,
I tell you what, I'm still embedded in John and Tom. It's exciting stuff. Well, hey, I want to welcome the one and only Tom Erb to the show. And of course, my sidekick. I got so sidetracked with that book there. John Ruffini. Recruiters with no limits, always live, and we're never scripted. Can I always say that?
Absolutely.
You got it. Well, hey, Tom, I just tell you what, since I know everything about you, since this book and everything else, you might as well tell everybody else about yourself out there and what's going on in your world in 2022.
Sure. Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Tom Erb with Talent Resources. We do consulting and training for the staffing and recruiting industry. And I've been in the industry for almost 28 years now. And so I've seen a lot of different things. And I've known you guys through different avenues for a while now. Just excited to finally get on the show here. This is going to be fun.
Psyched to have you. So since Richard had it up there, tell us a little bit about the book, Tom. And I'm curious, since you wrote the book, have you seen any changes in the way that people sell within the staffing industry and how it's evolved?
So the book came out in 2017 originally, and it really is. It's about 100 pages. It's a short book. It's meant to be short because salespeople have short attention spans. I have a short attention span. I wouldn't write a book that I wouldn't read. And so if it's much over 100 pages, I'm not going to read it. That's not true, but it'll take me a while. But it just, for those people that aren't familiar with the book, it talks about just how to create a structured sales process and differentiate yourself in the staffing industry and just do things that work. And it's not rocket science. It's not crazy stuff. Nobody reads it and goes, why would you do that? And well, maybe the sending the letters part of it, because people, aren't used to getting things in the mail anymore, but that's kind of the point of that. It talks about, building a strong value prop and how to really create a structured sales process and how to have a multi-step process. And the interesting thing is that from 2017 to now, it's become even more relevant. The whole idea of a structured sales process, multi-step, multi-touch was I don't want to say a new thing, but was not being used a whole lot. And now we're seeing technology that's supporting that. And I think it's even more relevant now than it was before. You see people, our buyers buy differently now because of the last couple of years with COVID and with working from home. And we're much more of a research-based informational buyer now, and so that just supports the process. So I think it works out better than ever before. Now,
in today's world, no secret, recruiters don't really have to work too hard to get job orders in today's world.
Yeah.
So is selling still important even when you have enough orders to work on?
Yeah. I mean, I always say that your recruiting problem is probably a sales problem, because when I ask people and I go around, I spoke a lot in the fall. There was a kind of a big run on, we got all our in-person stuff in those couple of months while we could. Right. And so I was running around in September and October and kept talking about this. And I kept hearing from people that were saying, why would I sell? I can't fill the jobs I have. And so I would ask everybody, I would say, hey, show of hands, how many people are having trouble filling jobs? And of course, everybody would laugh and raise their hands because, of course, it's a ridiculous question. It's obvious we're all having trouble. And I'd say, how many of you can think of a client or a job order that if you got it to come in, that you could fill that job quick? And everybody raised their hand. And I said, well, then why wouldn't you go find more jobs like that? Why wouldn't you go find more clients? And what I find is that we get so stuck on the clients that we have, that we're used to, it becomes habit of servicing certain clients and certain types of jobs. And we don't realize that in many cases it's a C account, it's a C order. And so we got to go out there and sell A and B orders. There's A and B orders out there. And of course we got to coach up the C's, but we should, the main reason why we struggle, well, the main reason is the talent shortage. Second main reason that we struggle to fill jobs is because we're trying to fill jobs that aren't fillable or they're not easily fillable, right? But there still are fillable jobs and fillable companies out there.
So even in a sense, what you said is I agree with you 100%. And it's something that really should be practiced regardless of what kind of market you're in. If you're a recruiter, always, having people, when job orders are plentiful, there's a misperception, I think, that, we can fill everything because clients will be easily swayed and they'll be more flexible, et cetera. And that's not always the case. So to your point, having some sort of defined methodology by which to categorize your job orders to make sure that you're putting the right effort and prioritizing appropriately is really important, even when there's an overabundance of open orders out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we go by the ABC methodology, it's not difficult, but what I did a couple of years ago was I created this spreadsheet we call it the order prioritization worksheet. And you go through and you ask yourself a set of questions. How fillable is this? Are they responsive? Do we have good terms with them? All those things. And we answer them, and then it spits out an A, B, or C at the bottom. And then it says, okay, if it's an A, keep going, fill all their jobs, try and get more of their business. If they're a B, coach them up, keep filling them, but coach them up. And if they're a C, give them an opportunity to improve, or they're the first ones out that you replace. And by the way, if anybody wants that order prioritization worksheet, shoot me an email or something. So I'm happy to share that. But it's
Tom, is that free?
Yeah, it's free. Yeah, I'm not selling anything on your live broadcast like you tried to sell me. So right.
Oh, there it is.
We won't go there. That was an inside joke, right? I'm still waiting for that check. Right. I got a question to ask you, Tom. Over promising in the sales. I see on the streets here when I go into companies that they see a staffing firm comes in, says, yeah, they can handle the order. They get the contract and never hear back from them. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with one of my clients yesterday about this, and he had brought it up. He said, he was actually talking about his experience with Peloton and just how amazing the experience was of the whole thing through. And so he was talking about how can we do that with staffing, and the conversation we had really talked about communication. And I've got another client that has started really focusing on Net Promoter Score. And you would think in these times when we can't fill jobs, Net Promoter Score would be dropping. It's amazing how many staffing companies have really high Net Promoter Scores, and their Net Promoter Score has gone into the 60s, 70s, and even in the 80s, even though they're struggling to fill some of the positions. And it all comes back to communication, right? So it's huge. It's huge for people to be able, and it's huge for you to be able to have those honest conversations. It does them no good to promise something you can't deliver on.
Exactly.
Well, and it also does no good for you to say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, on everything they throw at you. And when in the back of your mind going, this is not market competitive. We are not Nordstrom's where people are returning tires to us for a refund. We should be consultative, and it's in their best interest for us at times to say no, or that's not competitive. That's not what you should be doing. So
he summed it up, John, right there with the NO, right? We can always say no and walk away from a client if it's not the right fit.
Well, but so many times recruiters are so afraid to say no. They're so afraid to alienate for risk of, I want this job order. I don't want to risk losing the client. But to your point, Tom, it's a more value add. And if you've got a client that doesn't want your market expertise from a consultative point of view, then you've got to question yourself if you really want that company as a client, because they don't see the value in what you're bringing to the table. Because as recruiters, again, we're not just suppliers of talent. We know the market. So there's much more that we can offer clients when it comes to market knowledge, awareness, helping them get a competitive advantage if they're willing to open their ears to listen to it.
Yeah, I think we devalue our own expertise, and we come in at this subservient level a lot of times, and it's not in anybody's best interest to do that. we have an opportunity to be a trusted advisor to them and to really provide them with value that goes beyond just sending them bodies or sending them resumes or whatever. It really is about, we see more than they do. Even if you're talking to a head of talent acquisition at a big company, you still have more visibility to the market than they do, because they are very myopic. They're working on one company and that's it. And if we can show them that, listen, you can have insight into what's going on in the market, because we're working with dozens and dozens of companies out there. We're seeing thousands of candidates. We have insight into it that there's no way you can replicate, and we can share that with you. Then it's a huge advantage for you, and it's a huge benefit for them. And the smart ones will see that, right? The smart ones will know that. Yeah.
You know what? John knows I say this all the time. I'm like a protein shake to your workforce. We're just adding extra people, right? I mean, you got to make them think that way.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Tom, I got a quick one I want to ask you, and this bugs me all the time. John's going to laugh about this one. Sales reps, when they go in and they say they're going to do 50 calls a week and try to get 50 customers, tell me, what's your expertise on this? I mean, it seems like they're grabbing everything under sight. And they're forgetting about, going into their different sectors and learning about the company. What is your take on all that?
Well, I think it's a multi-pronged approach. I think there has to be enough activity. So there has to be activity, but it has to be the right way. It has to be the right type of activity, and there needs to be a variety of activities out there. So, I think that with the way that COVID has hit us the last, now going on 2 years. I hope I don't say that again this time next year. But with the way that it's hit us and has, at least in the first year, really inhibited our ability to get out and do networking and some of the other things, we really have been limited a lot more to emails and phone calls and those types of things. But I think a good balanced sales approach is going out and having all sorts of avenues where you're reaching out to people. There's a certain number of people. If I could do nothing but network, that's what I would do. But you got to get to that level. You've got to earn that ability. You have to, you don't just go and show up at a HR event and say, hey, I'm here. Let's start working together. I tell people, listen, you go to a local SHRM chapter, they'll ignore you for the first 6 months. Oh, you're just another salesperson that'll probably be here and gone in 2 meetings.
You have to prove yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And Tom, you're so right on that. Every time I go to a networking event, they don't even say their name. They just hand me a card right off the bat. I'm thinking,
I've seen it where they're like a blackjack dealer passing out their cards everywhere at the table. And it's
just thinking that's going to bring in business off, with no effort.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, the ultimate thing you want to do is be able to elevate yourself to the level in your market that you are considered as the expert and you're considered the go-to person. But it takes time and it takes real purpose to do that. So in the meantime, you do have to pick up the phone and call, but I think there's other ways to do it. There's so much new technology that has been around for a while, but really has matured, I think, in the last couple of years. You've got your HubSpot's been around for a long time to be able to do the different automated campaigns and those things. But for a lot of people, it was either too much or it cost too much or whatever. Now you're seeing that there's all sorts of other types of avenues to be able to automate some of that stuff, and also to be able to see who are the warm ones, who are the ones that are interacting with your emails, who are the ones that are clicking on your links, who are the ones that are going to your website, those things. And then you can start to have more of a targeted campaign with them. Knowing the industry and being niche and focusing on networking and those things are definitely critical pieces to it as well.
Agreed. And by using technology to complement your business, it shouldn't put the relationship on either side of the equation, candidate or client. It shouldn't jeopardize that or totally replace it. It should allow you to use your words, to optimize that relationship by using the tools in the proper way. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, it should be to enhance it. It should be to allow you to personally scale,
right?
Not to replace what you're doing.
Free you up to, we always say, hey, automate the things that should be automated and free up recruiters to do what they should be doing, where they should be spending their time.
That's right. Right.
It's interesting, Richard. We had a couple good comments from Jeff. Oh, you're putting them up there. Go ahead. I was gonna. He had a couple. So depending on recruiting offices, some recruiters are like a full desk model where they are selling and recruiting. Others have split desks where you've got an external sales group that brings in job orders and the recruiters fill them. And I thought that Jeff made a really good comment where he mentions, it takes leadership in the recruiting teams that will let people know that they're wasting their time on job orders that they shouldn't be working on.
Yeah.
And when the recruiters shouldn't just say, okay, yeah, I'll work on that. They've got to work hand in hand with their sales reps, in the sense that if the sales rep brings back a job order that is not fully qualified, the recruiter has to be honest to say, I can't recruit on this until you have answers to these questions. And the sales rep shouldn't take that as a negative. The sales rep should take that as, okay, I need to do my job better and learn what my recruiters need from me, and then the recruiters will learn what the clients need from them. It really is a total team effort in the office to be on the same page as far as understanding what we're all going to agree upon to work on. Because as we all know, sales rep brings in a job order, it's always a hot order.
Right. And never seen an order they didn't like. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But how do you get that, Tom? How do you get to that next level? Because working in the industry, you know how it is. Sales rep does their thing, then they go golfing, and then the recruiters, they're far apart. How do they get together?
Yeah.
You might get some hate mail on that comment, Richard.
But it's the facts, right?
I was about ready to push back and say I didn't golf when I was a sales rep, but I actually did. So,
see, there you go.
But yeah, sometimes it's true. No, I think it all starts with the fact that right now, here's the thing: we're going to have a talent shortage based on all the data. We're going to have a talent shortage for the next 30 or 40 years. Okay. And we'll have some ups and downs. There will be some economic things that loosen that up. But overall, we're not going to go back to what the three of us have seen before, where you couldn't find a company that needed our services or wanted our services. And we've all been through those times. I've sold in those times where you couldn't get anybody to talk to you. They had plenty of people. They'd run an ad, they'd get 300 good people on the ad. And it was very hard to have a value prop to say, hey, let us fill your jobs. We're not going to see that for the rest of our careers, or probably just about anybody that's on this call right now, even if you're in your 20s. Just all the data shows that we got 50 years of baby bust that is going on and still going on. So what sales reps need to understand is that, hey, you didn't all of a sudden get a lot better at sales. The rising tide has lifted a lot of boats. And sales is tough. So when sales is easy, we got to question easy. And if something seems too easy on the sales side, that should raise your antenna a bit and go, why is it that this company called into us? We've never had a relationship with them. We're seeing that all the time, right? You've got companies that are calling in to staffing companies going, this is great. Well, it's probably because they burned through 5 other staffing companies at least now. And so now they're coming to you, or they just randomly went in the phone book or whatever. If there's not some relationship or some activity that drove that, you got to already go in there with a skeptical eye. The sales reps do need to be more diligent. That's why we use that order prioritization worksheet with a lot of our clients, where they have to fill that out. And it's not a huge burden. So the salespeople that are on this call, I don't want you to hate me for it. It's actually in your best interest, because speaking to the salespeople on the call, it's in your best interest to bring in A and B clients, because those are the ones that get filled. So the C accounts, everybody's just going to be frustrated, and it's actually going to hurt you, because if you do have A and B clients that they're working on, it's going to take focus away from them, at least for a period of time, to try and fill your new C clients. So it's the sales rep's responsibility to really vet them out. And we don't know everything about them. They can say all the right things, and then when they are a client, they do all the bad things that we hate. They don't get back to us, don't give us any feedback, whatever. So that's where it really has to start. But then there also has to be that review of internal accounts to say, as the salespeople are bringing in better business, what business are we going to back off from? And It doesn't mean that we have to go to those C clients and say, you're a C client, we're not going to work with you anymore. Most of these C clients are working with 5 or 6 other staffing companies. And if we just kind of eased off working with them, then they probably wouldn't notice anyways. So, that's how you do it. It has to be everybody, but it also has to be at an executive level, because I've gotten pushback from owners and executives where they go, there are no C clients. We treat all of our clients like they're great.
Mhm.
And we don't want to fire a client. But the reality of it is we don't have enough talent to go around. And if you are portioning it out to a bunch of companies, that's not going to help you be as successful as if you pick A and B accounts and really focus on servicing their needs.
And to your point earlier, Tom, it's not that you don't treat all your clients with exceptional customer service. We're not going to fill every job order. And going back to what you said earlier, it's all in how you manage that account and that, deal and foster that relationship, because there are plenty of companies that might want to work with you now, but they don't have enough right now to earn your business as a recruiter because others are priority and you have A or B orders, to your point, and they're a C. However, it doesn't mean you should disrespect them. Treat them with the same level of respect, coach them, try and work with them, because down the road, they might become an A client. You don't know that. Right. So to your point, you can't just disrespect them. It's, treat everybody on the same accord. You can, there's a lot of referral business that comes in from accounts and candidates that you've never worked with or placed successfully, but that you treated with respect. So they know your brand as a recruiter.
Right. Yeah. You're not rude. You're not rude or disrespectful to anybody, but you want to give people an opportunity. I mean, part of I think what our obligation to our clients is to tell them exactly what they need to do to be successful, and then see if they do it. And some of them are unwilling. Others are unable to. I mean, there are some people that they just can't raise their rates to the level, at least not yet, raise their rates to the level where they can be competitive in the market. There's nothing we can do about that.
Right.
There's, if the market is at $18 an hour and they're at $15 an hour and they can't raise it because of their cost structure and their revenue structure, there's nothing you can do for them. You can only guide them, and hopefully they figure it out.
And I love how you said that, Tom. You have to guide them. I see so many companies that the staffing firm ghosts them. And that's how we get that bad name. Never called them back. They call and they need workers and they go on to something easier. And by the way, before we even start this, look at this, guys. I do have a fan. See? So that comment wasn't that bad after all.
Well, there's one. Are we keeping score? Is that what we're doing?
Oh, you know, Tom. But one thing I got to ask you, and this is something in the sales format that on LinkedIn, every salesperson's on LinkedIn, and I get so many emails a day that's spamming of, hey, can I help you with your workforce and all this good stuff? What's your take on that? Over and over saying the same thing.
Well, first of all, I mean, this might sound cliche or trite, but it's not about you, it's about them, right? It's not, as a salesperson, it's not about you. And that's what a lot of salespeople make the mistake about, is they reach out and they will say things like, hey, I wanted to see if you had any needs and if we could help you with it. Hey, we're a staffing company and I think we could be a great solution for you, which of course I have no idea if I can be a great solution for you. That's just my pitch. And clients and prospects, they're sick of that. They hear that stuff all the time. It's also the same message where there's no value, there's no differentiation, there's no nothing. So on LinkedIn, the best thing to do is to really get out there and to be a thought leader, is to present information, is to go out and find the people that you want to work with, introduce yourself in a human way and say, hey, I just want to get on your radar. I realize you probably don't have a need for staffing right now, but I wanted you to know I exist and love to send you an invite to connect. Let's keep in touch. And if I can help you now, I'll be happy to talk. If not, no problem. And it all goes back to this, what I've talked about before, is this abundance versus scarcity mentality. And most salespeople follow the scarcity mentality, which is there are only a few opportunities out there and I need to take advantage of it. Whereas the abundance mentality is there's so much out there. I just need to get myself out there enough and have enough conversations and good things happen. And so if I'm posting things on LinkedIn on a regular basis, even if I'm just following, I don't even have to be connected to my prospects. I can just follow them. And then when they're in my feed, I pay attention to it and I comment on something they posted. If they posted something, they probably were interested in it. So if I can comment on it, or if I can add a little bit extra, hey, you posted this. There's another article that's similar to that, or also has a different slant on it. Thought you might be interested in. Whatever you can do to start to engage people as human beings. Jeffrey Gitomer said a long time ago, people hate being sold to, but they love to buy. And it's true. We all love to buy stuff, right? And the other thing is right now, there are very, very few companies out there that fit our profile of our client that don't need our services. The problem is that we come at them the wrong way, either by being overly aggressive and presumptive, or by not differentiating ourselves, or both. So, and if you've got a market that you're in that has 100, 150, 200 staffing companies, and they're getting hit with them all the time, they don't have time to just give us a chance, right? Oh, just give me a chance. Yeah, like the other 100 staffing companies that asked me to just give them a chance.
Right.
Exactly.
I won't be in this job if I give all of you a chance, because I'm going to have a lot of failure that I have to report to.
Well, you know what, Tom, real quick, it's about the competition. Nobody's our competition. I think so many salespeople, you probably agree on this, they try to say, well, I got to compete against ABC staffing firm. You're not competing against anybody. Am I right?
Yeah, we're not Coke and Pepsi in this industry. This is not UPS and FedEx, right? I mean, our industry, and you're absolutely right, our industry is very fragmented. 90% of staffing companies do less than $10 million in revenue a year. There's 25,000 of them. And I do push back on my clients a lot when I say, who's your biggest competitor? Because when we really drill down to it, you probably have one or two that you run across more often than others. And you want to pay attention to them and you want to know, who they are. But in a particular market, unless you're really in a niche, if you're in a very specific niche, like creative or something like that, then you're going to have a handful of competitors. But even then, you have a lot of generalists that are competing against against you as well. I think you've got to be aware of your competition, but for the most part, you're competing against different companies all the time.
And it's all about establishing your personal brand as a recruiter. And it's not so much, again, it's kind of like when you play golf. Yeah, there are other people on the course, but it's you against the golf course. It's how other people do it. It's not like, okay, I've got to beat him. No, I've just got to play my best game. I've got to do my best job as a recruiter to establish how I want to be known. And back to the sales point earlier, I've always been in the mindset and the philosophy that in any type of sales role, and let's face it, recruiting is sales, if we do our job right, then we never have to sell anything.
Never.
It's all about, to your point, getting to know the other person on the other side of the equation, whether it's the client or the candidate, and really delivering a solution that is beneficial for them. You do that, it requires a lot of good listening and patience and a long-term focus. And I think that's also part of the problem that we run into with a lot of people, is that we're in such a world of immediate gratification that they think that every time they pick up a phone, they should get a job order or they should recruit a candidate. Right. And it takes time, and it's not that hard, in my opinion, to be better than most of the other recruiters in the industry, because so many have taken a transactional mindset. You can really make yourself stand out by just doing things the right way and being focused on that long-term relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
You nailed it. You nailed it, John, because I think the biggest thing is, you probably both agree, is I join associations. I go to these manufacturing companies to learn what the product is first. I don't talk about me trying to find them their workforce. You want to get to know them. And then the next thing, you're going to the next level. We got a quick question
Richard,
here.
real quick, let me just add to that. Years ago, when I was doing sales for one of the big nationals, I went to the local Institute of Packaging Professionals meeting. And I sat there and I'm talking to a packaging engineer beside me at the table. And he goes, so what do you do? And I said, oh, I work for a staffing company. And he goes, why are you here? And I said, I said, well, because I work with a lot of packaging professionals. I work with a lot of packaging companies, and I rattled off some names of companies, including a couple members of that organization. And it actually made me feel great because I go, nobody's used to this. Obviously my competitors have not been to this organization.
Wow.
Because they're wondering why I'm here. And sure enough, over the course of time, you just kind of hang around, you start to build relationships, you got to assimilate, and then you got to provide value when you get a chance. You don't sell. And over the course of time, they get used to you and they start to ask you questions, and you start to get clients.
So
Man,
with the changing times, and I know you've got a question from Kathy, Richard, but one just popped up that's directly relevant to what we're talking about here. All right, so that is, call it old school, but it's something that we've all done. We've gone to networking events, we've sat in there, we've pumped flesh, and we've rubbed elbows, etc. What advice are you giving your clients, Tom, with respect to how things have changed with the pandemic, where you don't have as many in-person interactions, and a lot of that's virtual? Are you applying the same techniques, or what are you advising them to do?
Yeah, it's harder. It's definitely, it presents challenges, but a lot of this stuff has gone to virtual. It started to come back in person, and now some of that's being put on hold because of the increase in the variant. But a lot of indications are that that's going to peak here somewhat soon, and people are itching to get back to in person. So we'll get back to that. But in the meantime, you treat it similar. You get on these these virtual sessions that these organizations have switched over to, whether it's SHRM or whether it's an IT profession, depending on what you're in, and you just look for ways to be able to interact. And then you take it over to LinkedIn and say, hey, you know what? I really loved what you said in the chat on this virtual conference about this, and I wanted to connect with you. If there's ever anything I can do, let me know, or would love to talk to you more. And then you get them into your network, and then you start to just interact. I'll tell you that we've seen so much of this networking move over to Facebook groups. Mm-hmm. Facebook groups have really exploded, and it's a great place for you to interact. And we're seeing a lot of success. I'm on a lot of Facebook groups where, there may be 10,000 people on there, and there's about 6 or 7 people that you could rattle off are the big influencers. And the other piece too is for people who like to speak, you guys know this, there's nothing better than speaking. If you want to get to the top of the list, that's the quickest way to do it, because if you're in a conference of 100 people, you've got a 99-to-1 ratio when you're up there on the stage. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And if that's something that you like to do, and that if you like to do it, you're going to be good at it. There's not a lot of people who like to do it that aren't really that good at it. So, that's something I definitely recommend too. And you can do that. Now's a great time to do that, because it's actually, I think it's easier to speak just from a nervousness standpoint, that to be able to speak on video than it is to get up in front of people live. So it's a good way to kind of practice that now. Mm-hmm. and talk about what you know. You'll be good if you talk about what you know.
Perfect information. Showtime for everybody. We got a couple questions here before we wrap things up here. Kathy, I want to reach out to you on this one here about hitting the pavement, Tom. What do you think? Still the old school way? What do you?
It's a great question, because so I think that it will always be here. And the reason is because whenever everybody goes over this way, there are some people that see an opportunity to go back this way. And we already saw that as the first couple of waves of COVID subsided, is we had some sales reps that went back out and went in person. I do think that for the most part, a lot of sales reps have seen the efficiencies in not doing door-to-door. The challenge with door-to-door, quite frankly, in most markets, is that it's just extremely time-consuming for the amount of return that you get on it. Now, there are a handful of people that are extremely good at door-to-door cold calling, and they should continue to do that. For most people, I think they're going to see that it's much more efficient to be able to do that through other different types of interaction. We've had a lot of sales reps we've worked with that went from being almost completely dependent on door-to-door cold calling to now they're saying, I wouldn't go back out and do it. It's a waste of my time.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Do you find the same amount of success at virtual conferences, trade shows, at in person? What do you think?
No.
Love it.
I love the direct answer, and I don't think anybody's going to disagree with you.
Yeah,
I
love in person. I love in person. It's just, it's hard to in person. You have opportunities to take the conversation further right there, and with virtual, it's hard to do that. I mean, there have been some virtual conferences that I think have done it better than others. I think you can still be successful. You just got to be more purposeful ahead of time. If you can get the list of people ahead of time, or you get them when you have it, where you, or as the conference is going on, if you see the people that are interacting, make notes of that and reach out to them, like I said, via LinkedIn. You just do different things to keep that conversation going. Virtual is definitely here to stay. There's a lot of great virtual conferences that have come out of this. But the in-person conferences have gone virtual. I can't wait for them to go back in person again. And there's just no replacing it. We are human. We're human beings that are very social creatures, and we just do best that way, regardless of the technology.
Well, and like anything, though, we're going through a time period here that, we don't know how long this is going to last, and if it's going to fade in and fade out based on different variants and contagions that are out there. Yeah. But, as recruiters and as salespeople, that's part of the challenge. You have to adapt. You have to adapt with the evolving changes in the landscape without losing sight of your fundamentals. But things are always going to be changing. That's the only constant.
Yeah. And one of the, we didn't know how this would go. There was a lot of talk about, the in-person conference is dead, that everything's going virtual. But when we saw that drop in cases this summer, you saw how many live conferences kicked in the fall. And yes, some of them were down. Most of them were down in attendance, but part of that had to do with there was fear of the virus. There were other factors that went into it. There was uncertainty about whether they would really happen or not. I think once there's more stability around that, you'll see conferences go back. Now, conferences will never go back to what they were 10, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. There are so many other ways for people to learn and to network that conferences are lower in general than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. But I think they'll bounce back to pre-COVID levels, certainly.
Wow, good stuff. My last question, Tom, give me your two top changes you think will be in 2022. What's the big transformation change we're going to see?
The biggest thing to me is that the winners of this industry are going to be the ones that really focus on particularly candidate and employee relationships. And instead of looking at transactionally, let's get this person in, get them on a job and move on, it's going to be much more about how do we get this person into our organization and keep them in the organization. We've seen assignment length drop in half in the last 2 years with many of our clients. So we're working twice as hard for the same amount of production. The only difference is that the pay rates have gone up, so that's helped us a little bit. But the length of assignment has dropped significantly. The way that people want to work is different. I think that's going to benefit the staffing industry a lot. People don't want to work traditional jobs, long-term jobs for 3, 5, 10 years. So I think there's ways to do that, but it's about building relationships. That's a really big thing. The other thing is technology. Technology adoption has accelerated significantly in the last 2 years. 5, 6 years ago, I was talking about these texting platforms and how they were going to be the next new thing, and that in a few years, everybody's going to have them. And sure enough, we all do. That's the way it's going to be for the mobile apps. It's all going to be mobile. It's going to be self-serve, and not to say that it's going to be mobile to replace staffing companies, physical staffing companies, but it's really going to be to enhance the service delivery that we have. People want self-service. They want ease. They want frictionless. So the technology is really going to enable that.
Exciting.
Which I think will free us up then to have those relationships too, which is really that's the value add.
Johnny, any final thoughts on our man, Tom Erb here?
Well, only that we're going to have to get him back because there's so much more that we just scratched the surface. Winning the Staffing Sales Game is the book. Tom, where can people get it?
They can get it anywhere. They can get it on Amazon. They can get it Barnes and Noble. They can get, or if there's any in-person bookstores, they might be able to get it. But probably Amazon is probably where most people get it. So.
Or the Staffing Sharks office. I got a bunch of copies.
Just go see Richard. I love the fact that that you emphasized it's all about relationships and it's all about them. And recruiters who don't lose sight of that will have a nice long career.
Absolutely, they're going to win consistently. Yeah, and it's residual, right? It's residual. It keeps paying off. You don't have to reinvent the wheel over and over again if you build strong relationships.
So true. Real quick here. There's me, Tom, and Brad at the Academy Awards.
I love that beard.
Oh, good times. I tell you what, I want to wrap it up by saying, hey, Tom, thanks a lot, man. You know what? You're one of the inspirations I look up to every day, brother. You know that, man. You're a good dude. And I love how you just keep it real, man. I think the biggest thing we all learn from today is try different things, be creative, and just be you. I think that's the biggest thing. Just be you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, anytime.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Another episode in the books here, 2022. We'll see you next week on another great show. Take care.
Have a good one.